Just a quick heads up for this video, unlike the Snape video, I'm not actually going to have any Harry Potter music or video footage from the movies, so hopefully this one won't get demonetised. Also, while I may show images of Harry from the movies and reference stuff that also happens in the movies, I am going to focus on the Harry from the books, because there's a lot more to work with. That being said, the same overall point about Harry's character still applies, and hopefully there won't be too much difference between the two mediums. So, to start off the video, I just wanted to explain why I wanted to make this, and also apologise for it being as short as it's going to be. I could honestly talk about Harry's character and analyse sections about him from the books for hours, because there's so much material to work with. But I don't have all year to make this video, so there's going to be a lot that I would have liked to have talked about that I just haven't mentioned, but I'll be more than happy to discuss stuff in the comments. As for why I wanted to make this video, well, Harry gets a lot of flack that he doesn't really deserve. Recently I haven't really seen this that much, but in the past I've often seen people talk about the simplicity of his character, or the fact that he's not even the best wizard, or how he's only important because Voldemort chose him over Neville, or how he's just allowed to get into ridiculously dangerous situations by stupid adults and stupid judgments on his part. That last one is true though. Let's handle that first criticism about Harry's simplicity. To put it simply, I disagree. He might not be as morally complex as Snape, but he's still a powerful character in his own right. He's fiery, courageous, and has a little bit of an anger problem, to be honest. Even in his first proper chapter, chapter 2 of the Philosopher's Stone, we're made aware of his resilience. He's been placed in this absolutely horrible position, with these almost pantomime villains in the form of the Dursleys, where he is overworked, malnourished, physically and mentally abused, and neglected. And yet, in the face of all this horror, he's still surprisingly spirited. The books are written mostly from a limited third-person perspective, and Harry is the focus of that perspective. So although it's not in the third person, we still only really get to see the world from Harry's point of view, through his lens and thoughts. What we get in this first chapter of Harry's life is a quiet acknowledgement of how awful it really is, but woven into that we get little digs here and there, like wondering why someone as fat and adverse to exercise as Dudley would want a racing bike. In addition, the novel remarks how Harry often said that Dudley looked like a pig in a wig, not thought, but said out loud, presumably to Dudley or the Dursleys. That cheeky little... Later on in the same book, we see the peak of the more fiery side of Harry, the side of his personality that got him put into Gryffindor in the first place. He's just realised, or so he thinks, that Snape is on his way to steal the Philosopher's Stone, and has resolutely decided to go and stop Snape himself. After Ron and Hermione tell him that he's mad and that he'll be expelled, Harry has an outburst where he justifies the ridiculous quest that he's about to set himself on, and he does quite well.
So what? Harry shouted. Don't you understand? If Snape gets hold of the stone, Voldemort's coming back. Haven't you heard what it was like when he was trying to take over? There won't be any Hogwarts to get expelled from. He'll flatten it or turn it into a school for the dark arts. Losing points doesn't matter anymore, can't you see? Do you think he'll leave you and your families alone if Gryffindor win the House Cup? If I get caught before I can get to the stone, well, I'll have to go back to the Dursleys and wait for Voldemort to find me there. It's only dying a bit later than I would have done, because I'm never going over to the dark side. I'm going through that trapdoor tonight, and nothing you two say is going to stop me. Voldemort killed my parents, remember?
Harry has just found this wonderful, magical world where he can be away from the Dursleys, have friends for the first time, and enjoy every second of his existence for once. Except potions lessons, of course. Cheers, Snape. And now he's found out that somebody wants to take it all away, and he feels like he's the only one who knows this and can stop it. It's the last line of this little speech that interests me the most, however, as it suddenly makes this very personal. It almost feels out of place, like an afterthought on what would have naturally been the end of his rant, but it allows us, the reader, to understand another part of Harry's motivations. While this magical world has been nearly everything that Harry could have ever wanted, the reason he was pulled out of it in the first place was because of Voldemort. He spent nearly 10 years with some of the most horrible people imaginable, instead of in this wonderful world with his family, because of Voldemort. That little remember at the end serves as a double-edged sword, as a remember that Voldemort killed my parents, what do you think he could do to your families? And also a remember that Voldemort killed my parents, I've suffered because of him and I know what that's like. It's easy to sometimes forget the bravery of protagonists, but this is an 11-year-old boy willing to risk his life and the life he's just found to do good. Also props to Ron and Hermione for going with him. Part of someone's personality doesn't always just come out when they have to go and fight dark wizards, however, and Harry's fiery, quick retorts are some of the most enjoyable moments in the series. It's easy for his quick wit to be overshadowed by Fred and George, but flanked by Ron, who calls every third person a git, and Hermione, who is always ready to prove someone wrong, Harry is more than able to stick up for himself, which he does on several occasions. There's a moment in the Order of the Phoenix where Harry throws Malfoy's haughty insult right back at him, borrowing a bit from Ron's varied insult vocabulary.
Drawled Malfoy, whose sleek blonde hair and pointed chin were just like his father's. You see, I, unlike you, have been made a prefect, which means that I, unlike you, have the power to hand out punishment. Yeah, said Harry, but you, unlike me, are a git, so get out and leave us alone.
There's also the various occasions where Harry speaks up against Umbridge, earning him a swathe of detentions, and disappointed looks from McGonagall and Hermione. And then there's one of my favourite moments.
Do you remember me telling you we are practicing non-verbal spells, Potter? Yes, said Harry stiffly. Yes, sir. There's no need to call me sir, Professor.
Interestingly, this fierce, quick-wit side of his personality is mirrored by Ginny. Just a cool little similarity between the two of them. Another criticism that Harry gets a lot is the lack of magical ability. A lot of fantasy-based literature and media have their protagonist as the most powerful of that fantastical art, or are the most skilled in their area, and yet Harry is by no means the best wizard. Not even Hermione, one of the best witches in Hogwarts, is the best witch in history. Her achievements pale in comparison to someone like Dumbledore's. That being said, Harry isn't bad at magic by any means. In a wonderful bit of grounded realism, like any child, Harry has subjects that he does well in, and subjects that he does less well in. He's clearly very naturally gifted in the defence against the dark arts, but he's not some ridiculous prodigy. He can fight Death Eater grunts, and it's awesome to see him hold his own against Voldemort's inner circle in the Order of the Phoenix, even if he's only just doing so, and only because they don't want him to drop the prophecy. But against Voldemort, Harry doesn't really stand a chance. And why should he? This kind of ties into the he's only special because Voldemort chose him instead of Neville thing. So why is he so powerful? Why is he so special? The answer to these questions is truly wonderful. He's not. Not in the traditional sense anyway. Harry is just a moderately talented wizard, chosen because of a prophecy to become the legend that he is. How he reacts to this, how he chooses to live his life with all this weight on it, is what is special about Harry. To have a character that is simply more powerful than the enemy he has to defeat takes away from the humanity of that character. It's harder to connect with and admire someone who wins because they have magical abilities that are just naturally more powerful than someone else's. But here we have a protagonist which is nowhere near as powerful as the enemy, and yet wins because of his humanity. And that links us into my overall point. The Harry Potter series doesn't have to have an overarching message if you don't want it to. That's fine, take from it whatever you want to. But if you choose to look for one, you'll see that a consistent moral theme runs throughout, first introduced in the Philosopher's Stone. At the end of the book, we find out why Quirrell couldn't touch Harry, and why Voldemort wasn't able to kill Harry as a baby. Lily's sacrifice, rooted in love, magically protected Harry from Voldemort's killing curse. The important bit here isn't just that love is stronger than all magic, it's that Voldemort didn't think about it. He failed to foresee it, and he even failed to consider it as a possibility, despite knowing of the existence of such magic. It wasn't just a simple oversight, it typifies his disregard for love, in one of his biggest mistakes, which eventually directly parallels the reasons behind the actions of Harry. It may be Dumbledore that champions that idea, but it's Harry who more often acts upon it, naturally, out of heart. Now I know this all sounds really cheesy, but bear with me. So this idea, this theme as we have called it, has been introduced in Book 1, and it's brought up now and again throughout the novels. This comes to a climax in Book 7, The Deathly Hallows, and the final confrontation between Harry and Voldemort, where Harry is able to triumph over Voldemort because of the ability of good to triumph over evil. Because of Snape's sacrifices and bravery, the Elder Wand was able to have its allegiance brought over to Harry instead. And because of Harry's willingness to sacrifice himself for everyone he loved had the same protection that he did when Lily sacrificed herself to save him. Even if his little gamble didn't pay off, Voldemort would have been defeated. So what is this message that I've been tiptoeing around? The idea that good can triumph over evil simply because it is good. Perhaps not a very accurate message, but it's still one that flows through the series, and Harry is the perfect vessel for that message. He triumphs over evil not because he's magically gifted, but because he is good, making Harry the perfect protagonist. A really nice specific example to use, showcasing the differences between Tom Riddle and Harry, is when Riddle tried to possess Harry at the end of The Order of the Phoenix. At first, Harry is consumed with the most immense pain, and is totally unable to deal with it. But when he thinks of death, he thinks of being with Sirius again and feels a surge of emotion. Because of Voldemort's soul being so recklessly damaged and destroyed through the years of magical tampering to try and make him immortal, he can't deal with the emotion, and it causes him excruciating agony, and he leaves. Voldemort's tampering with Horcruxes typifies his personality, so utterly afraid of death and so recklessly ignorant about emotion, and because of the weakness that he creates by splitting his soul, he is unable to properly possess Harry. Anyway, I've run out of time, and I didn't even get to talk about Harry's cataclysmic outbursts or the absolutely stupid decisions he makes in the Chamber of Secrets. Like I said at the beginning though, I'm more than happy to talk about it in the comments, so share your thoughts below. Did you like this video? If so, please consider subscribing if you think you'd like to hear more from us. I hope you have a wonderful week, and stay safe.